Hey guys, so we get a lot of questions about stitch down construction, just what it is and how some of these major stitch down construction companies compare to each other. We just so happen to have several of the more popular brands in right now. We got NICKS, we got WESCO's, JK, and White's. We also happen to have a pair of Bordeaux boots out of Colombia, and we're gonna take all of these apart, see how they stack up against each other, and see how these Colombian boots line up against some of these Pacific Northwest brands. Stick along. Okay, we're gonna jump right into this with these WESCO Job Masters. This is a roughly $650 custom built boot. It comes with the Vibram 269 sole and this Vibram 430 heel. Now this heel has metal washers implemented into it, as you can see on the ends of these nails here. And it looks like WESCO uses one set of nails through the heel all the way in. It's a really long nail and it should hold really well. You can see here a leather heel base, two pieces of a leather stacked heel base, not glued to the sole, came off pretty easily. I'm going to go ahead and grind these stitches down to break them so I can get this sole up a little bit easier. This also kind of imitates how you would wear those stitches down, just to kind of show you guys how easy it is to peel up these soles once the stitches are broken. So yeah, that was pretty easy. As you can see, the glue does most of the work. So without a good glue job, the stitches don't really do too much. You got 2 rows of stitches on most stitch down boots. This one is no different. Now on this particular boot, I'm not going to be rebuilding the entire thing. I'm going to be leaving this midsole on, so we will not get to break in and see what kind of shank is in here. I do believe that they give you the option for a steel shank or not. Moving right along, we got the NICKS Falcon. This is roughly a $600 boot. This comes with the Vibram 430 sole and 430 heel, just like on the WESCO Job Masters. You can see this one was a lot more of a fight to get off. Their glue job that they're using in the NICKS factory is seemingly quite good. And just like on the WESCOs, we got these nails. They're a bit shorter that held the heel to the base. We'll pop all of these out. All right, oh, okay, and peeling this up, again, solid leather heel base, but it's a second set of nails. So you had one set of nails that held the heel to the base and this second set of nails that held the base to the rest of the shoe. We'll pop all of these out as well. All right, up comes the base. Okay, so you got 2 more layers here. So it was a 3-layer base on this pair. I think on the WESCOs you can opt for a higher heel or a lower heel. It looks like the guy got a lower heel on that pair. So, all right, we're gonna sand these stitches just like we did on the other one. We are going to be getting further into this boot, but again, as you can see, once the stitches are broken, the soles peel up pretty easily. So it does make a difference on how good the glue job is here. Pull out these stitches, 2 rows of stitches again, just like on the WESCOs. All right, now I did notice on these NICKS that they had a second set of stitching, a Blake stitch actually, through the inside of the shoe to this outsole. That was really awesome to see. That will hold the boot together a lot stronger. Now peeling up this midsole through the waist and the heel area, you got these clinch nails, pretty standard amongst stitch down boots to be fastened together this way. So we're gonna pop all of these up. They have a double row in that shank area that was giving me a lot of trouble. So I'm gonna move on to trying to get my heel pry in between the leather upper and this midsole, see if I can get that to break loose. Again, NICKS does a really good job at their adhesive work, so these soles gave me quite a fit. This is really where you start to get a good forearm pump and a bead of sweat across your forehead. All right, so let's see. The shank, they have this leather. Let's peel this back, see if there's any metal shank up underneath. And there is not. So it's just a thick piece of veg tan leather, it looks like, giving you the arch support in this pair. All right, moving on. And the next pair is these JK OT Bisons. They had some screws in the heel that I had to remove first, and we're gonna break these stitches down. This is the Vibram 132 sole in honey. It's a one-piece sole, so it doesn't have the top lift and heel stack as you saw on the first two pair. This is roughly a $625 pair of boots. Beautiful boots. Let's get right into it. So this sole is soft and stretchy, so it's quite difficult to peel up sometimes, and JK did a really good job gluing these things on. So that has a rubber midsole, which can often be a better bond, especially on a rubber sole like this. Sometimes in work conditions, leather midsoles will get oversaturated with water and can break down the adhesive. So having this rubber midsole for this type of sole is a great idea by JK. But as you can see, it is quite the fight. I'm tearing it, I'm ripping it, but we're going to get it off either way. Again, another forearm pump from this one. It can be really tough on the hands, but if you're lucky like me and you got really big hands, sometimes you can get a really good bite, especially on the thicker heel right here, and still be able to pry this whole thing off. But man, that's tough. All right, there's a second set of stitching around that heel there, so we'll have to check that out. But first, let's get these 2 rows of stitchings out of the forefoot, just like we did on the others. As you can see, all these stitches come out pretty similar. All right, we're going to sand it. I thought this was a Blake stitched, kind of like the NICKS did in their forefoot, but it's not. It's more of like a rapid stitch between that rubber midsole and this leather, what's called a half slip. So I got that broken down. We're going to peel these two things up, and I'll show you this half slip. Pretty straightforward construction of a boot, no filler or anything needed. So you just have this rubber midsole and the half slip. Now the half slip is something that JK advertises to make their boots a lot more flexible. So if you have a full length leather midsole, you can see how thick this thing is. If it was full length, it'd be harder to break in and flex. So they do it as a half slip to make the boots a whole lot more flexible. It is also fastened on by clinch nails, just like every other boot that we've seen so far. So basically the same setup, just a little bit different with the half slip. And also not shown on this video, we didn't get footage of it, but the shank is also leather. There's no metal. However, it was a really flimsy piece of leather, so there was no arch support at all. All right, we'll move right into these White's Packer boots. This is a $700 pair of boots. Now, this is a little bit older model that came with the leather sole. I think the new ones now have the rubber sole, but we're going to break right into it. They got the heel came off pretty good, and this leather heel stack is quite tall. They got some really long nails that go all the way through it, so we're going to work all of these out and try to get this heel base off. All right, now we got all those nails out. We're going to pry this heel base up. It is completely made out of leather. There's no leather board to be seen here. That's a good solid heel base. I'm going to reuse that probably. I'm going to sand these stitches just like we did on the others. And again, peel it up the sole. We got clinch nails through the heel and waist area, just like the others as well. Breaking these kinds of boots down, a lot of it's the same, but you really kind of got to fight the elements and work with the boot. Now, I'm telling you, stitching a leather sole versus stitching a rubber sole, the stitch is a lock stitch, and it locks really good into the leather, and more so than the rubber. So on a rubber sole, once you break the stitches on the bottom, they're not really doing too much for the sole. It's that leather midsole that really counts for the stitching. And as you can see here, man, just trying to pull these stitches out from that sole was quite the job. It became quite difficult. Now, this pair of boots and a lot of White's boots has a little bit different construction. It is a stitch down construction, but they also have this kind of rolled over piece of leather over top of their welt that is actually stitched to a hold fast. On this pair of boots, it was a hold fast construction. So it can be a little bit better that way. It's going to be a whole lot more of a sturdy boot as it breaks in and breaks down. Pop this up. As you can see, it is also just a leather shank. There is no metal underneath there, but it's quite a thick piece of leather. Moving straight on into these bourdons. Now, look at this glue job. They just glued it to this heel base that the whole heel base is just pulling up. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, it looks like they just kind of put a leather board kind of heel, like a horseshoe shape heel lift to kind of level out that heel. I believe it's leather board, kind of pulled apart like leather board. Now this is a $400 pair of boots out of Colombia. All the rest of them have been out of the US. This pair is out of Colombia. We just kind of want to show you guys there's not too much of a difference here, and a big price difference. So we do have a piece of leather for the heel base here, and it is fastened really well. As you see, the nails are coming up with it and leaving some behind. That was awesome to see. A really good heel. Now this pair has the It's Hide Commando sole and heel. We're going to do the same thing and break these stitches all the way around so we can get this sole peeled up. Now these things are completely handmade from start to finish. I don't know what same place in Colombia. And man, again, the glue job is really good. Got a good thick piece of leather for the midsole. And the stitches were orange, which was really cool. So I'm going to try to get all these stitches out. They were a lot more difficult to pull. As you can see, they don't really come out as easily as the other boots. Okay, I lied. That one came out pretty good. Now these are Tony Wyatt's boots, and as you can see, they're quite filthy. So in the comments section, be sure to tell Tony to clean his boots more often. Jesus, sounds like an airplane. And now if you want to see the rebuild on this boot, we will be releasing that soon. You'll see Tony Wyatt himself rebuild these. He'll go over a little bit more in detail what he thinks of the boots and how they're made. I just kind of wanted to show you guys the breakdown and how it compares. You can see it's not much different. Another boot to really fight, man. These things were clinched in there super good. This leather was a little bit softer, a little bit more fleshier than some of the others, which makes it a little bit harder to peel up sometimes. But we're going to get this up one way or another. Lots of clinch nails in this one. This boot is not going anywhere. Now they do have a cork filler in there, just a little bit, but it makes a difference. Here you can see we have a leather piece over the shank, gives it, but it is sanded up nicely and shaped beautifully. And underneath, look at that, you got a steel shank. That's the first one of the day that has the combination. And oh, look at that, these were made specifically for Tony. He's got his name on there. So we have them all to about the same point, and as you saw, there's not a whole lot of major differences between each brand. Now, a quick disclaimer, I do understand that each one of these brands is going to have a different tier of boots, from casual to more rugged boots. These are the ones that I just had in the shop in this moment. So you can kind of use your own discretion on that. But as far as recraftability goes, Stitchdown, it's a great boot, but compared to Goodyear welted boot, it is a little bit harder to recraft. Most of these brands have their own rebuild program, so you can send it straight back to the factory to get it done. But as far as finding a local cobbler, it's going to be a whole lot more difficult. One of the reasons why is because we can't machine stitch a lot of these. Most of them have to be sewn by hand, and not a lot of cobblers are up to taking on that task. So that's just one thing to consider when you're looking into the stitch down boot game is it going to be easy for me to have these recrafted in the future? And you can kind of compare that against the price of these nicer boots. Because they use the same outsoles, it's going to wear about the same rate. So saying which one's going to last longer is just going to be a matter of personal preference and use and everything. So it really just kind of comes down to the individuality of you as a shopper. You're going to get a great boot no matter which direction you go. So one thing just to kind of point out, these are all stitched down construction. Cool. I'm just gonna start over. They're all stitched down. Anyways, these are stitched down, and so when you stitch down,
when they stitch them down. When you stitch them down, they're stitched down.